Flair Steamboat, Hogan Andre, Austin Hart, MJF Ospreay? Is it a great match? Is it a classic match? Is it one of the greatest matches of all time? That's one of the questions we're going to try to answer tonight. I, the Devil's Advocate, with my co-host, the Encyclopedia himself, Blackbeard.
No, it's not so black, but yeah, we'll go with that.
And my other co-host, the yin to my yang, the good to my evil, the good Reverend himself.
Don't worry. Mine's black enough for both of us.
Say his name and he appears. I believe in the Reverend.
Oh boy. Okay. So tonight, one of tonight's topics we were going to talk about, people are saying, if you haven't seen the match, it was a 59-minute match. We had MJF, Will Ospreay for the international title. And I noticed last night everyone in AEW seems to have a title. I just don't know why last night I noticed it more than all. But every interview they did, and everybody that came out had a belt on their shoulder. But that's a story for another time. And people are calling it a classic. People are calling it 5 stars. People are calling it some of the best matches they've ever seen. And my question that we started to talk about right before we turned on the recorder is, what makes a classic? What components that takes a match from a regular match or a well-remembered match to one of the greatest matches of all time? And will Ospreay MJF be remembered in that way, or will it be remembered as, hey, it was a really good match, we really enjoyed it, but not considered one of the greatest of all time? So I found a list, and it's, of course, lists are subjective. So like anything else, it's open for debate. I found someone has the 100 greatest matches ever. All right. And I'll name some of the matches that are listed on here. I'll just run through the list quickly because some of these are based in Japan. Some of these are based in Mexico. We may not have seen them. And this person doesn't give a blurb on all of them, but some of them have like a little why. There's Andrade and Johnny Gargano, NXT TakeOver Philadelphia, which was number 96 on this list. Let's see, Japan, a lot of Japan. Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair, Hell in the Cell. Let's see, Bayley and Sasha Banks listed as 85 on this list, the Iron Man match, which Anthony's making a face. I think he probably thinks it's
No.
a lot lower.
When you said Iron Man, that made more sense. Go ahead.
Okay. Then we have Steve Austin versus Dude Love, the no DQ Falls Count Anywhere match in your house.
Who
The
made
Hart
this
Foundation.
list?
I don't know. The Hart Foundation. I'm not giving them a plug because they haven't done anything for us. So the Hart Foundation versus Goldust, Ken Shamrock, Steve Austin, and the Legion of Doom, listed at 74. And then let me skip down towards the bottom because those are really the ones that you think are, the highest rated matches. Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, WrestleMania 10. Iron Sheik versus Sergeant Slaughter, boot camp match. Number 9, Bret Hart, Steve Austin submission match. Sasha Banks, Bayley, Women's Championship, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. And then this list has number 1 as it has it's a Japanese match, but number 2 is Bret Hart versus Steve Austin Survivor Series. So, Reverend, greatest match of all time. Name one for me. Your opinion.
Jeez. Why don't you start me with a difficult question? Jeez. You got to go to the kennel from Hellman. No. I think. See, greatest match of all time. This is a tough.
All right. I mean, one
question.
Come up with one. There's got to be a match you've seen that you're like, oh my god, best match I've ever seen, and I want to know why you picked that match.
I can give one that fits into my top 20, and that's the best I can offer right now. I know.
Really?
I know.
I can name like 15 right off the top of my head. Go ahead.
You know what? Actually, I can give you one of my top 10. And it was a TV match.
Go ahead.
Booker T versus Triple H.
No, TV match. Triple H was in it, though. Triple H versus Shawn Michaels. And it was on an episode of Raw, and I think it was like the last Raw of the year. Is like December 29th, and I want to say 2003, maybe something like that.
Such a great match. He doesn't know when it was.
I thought he was going
I don't have to.
I
know
thought he
when
was
it
going to
was.
say 1997
No,
when
I don't have to
Shawn
know when it
Michaels
was.
went down for
I have
double.
to know it was for the World Heavyweight Championship, and it ended in a draw with Eric Bischoff counting the 3. And it just so happened it was one of those famous Shawn Michaels falls onto his opponent situations, except both his shoulders hit the match. So Triple H retained the title. And it was memorable one because it was about an hour long, just like this Ospreay MJF match. And it was, I think what happened was that a large part of the Raw roster wasn't there that night. But they went, it was just an amazing back and forth match. And as I was watching it, I thought, well, this is probably the best thing I'll ever see on TV. Like for wrestling on TV. That's what stuck with me. And I remember thinking Shawn Michaels won, and then my heart fell when he lost.
I'm just letting you know. The match went 29 minutes, 22 seconds.
Are you sure?
I don't know. According to Cage Match.
I'll tell you the truth. I felt like I was sitting there for an hour.
He got the date right. It was December 29th.
Felt like an hour.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you that I don't remember anything else from that episode. All I remember is that match.
All right. So question. What made it such a great match?
One, it was unexpected. Sometimes you like being surprised. So it wasn't something they hyped up a whole ton. And it really felt like anybody could win the match. And both of them were just on top of their game. It went back and forth. And I was surprised at the ending. But I just remember walking away thinking that was a great match. And like I said, I don't remember anything else from that episode.
Okay, I mean, where I was trying to go with this.
Well, okay, and some technical things. Technically, those two, you put them in the ring most anytime, they have great chemistry. So there was that. The crowd, I feel, was not aware of what they were about to watch and got into it. So it was one of those situations where they're progressively getting more and more into the match. And so when you're watching from home and you see everyone else get caught up in that frenzy, then you start to get caught up in that as well. And I think any match that you can kind of let yourself fall into, and when you get to suspend your disbelief, when you find yourself really rooting for somebody or against somebody, yeah, it's a great match because you become emotionally invested.
So to sum up, it was the quality of the wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
It was the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
It was the element of surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say those are three components that make a classic match?
Yes.
Okay.
And not just the quality of wrestlers. I feel like that's saying, oh, well, these are two really good wrestlers. It's the chemistry. I think we've seen when there are two good wrestlers in a ring, but they don't have the chemistry necessarily. But these two had the chemistry that night.
All right. So Encyclopedia, what do you got?
You actually named the match. It was the Bayley-Sasha Banks match at NXT Brooklyn.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, it's a good match. It's on a lot of lists that I've seen.
Yeah, and I could honestly say that's my favorite match of all time. I think it was the emotion that you got watching the match. That was based on the storyline leading into it. That was based on the in-ring work. The selling, you starting to think that maybe Bayley's not going to be able to pull this off, and Sasha was a complete freaking bitch in the match, like totally like the two clashing against each other, but that chemistry was there. And also the reaction, the feeling you have as a fan watching it, and the respect that what they're doing in the ring, you're not like I said, you're not really sure if they're going to win or who's going to win. the false finishes, the submission moves, and you're thinking, oh, this person might really tap out, and they're just selling it like they're gutting it out. They're not that look on their face selling that I'm not sure I could take much more of this. You know what I mean? The them taking a move and like staying on the mat or selling the whatever limb that took the move and actually, like they're legitimately in pain, not trying to run to the next move in their sequence of moves. I think that all of that factors in.
Okay. I mean, my question back to you guys before I give my list or a couple matches I wanted to mention. Do you think some matches get more credit than they deserve because the crowd's really into it?
Yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
so.
Like the most recent, like the Puerto Rico cards they had at WWE had the cards they've been doing overseas. The fans are really crazy into it, and you're like, wow, the fans are into this. But then if you like Anthony said, if you turn the volume off, you're kind of like, well, this wasn't so great. But the crowd was so into it,
I
like you get swept up in it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
though.
Like I wonder if we go back and watch those again, we're like, well, that match wasn't. This was a good card, but it wasn't great. The fans were just crazy, nuts, insane, and that's what made it so great.
I'd say that's more a product of matches from 20 years ago, not necessarily now. Where because I mean, I think we've gotten um I want to say desanitized, but it's not. That's not the right term.
Desensitized.
Desensitized to like this is awesome chance. That's actually a lot of times that's a turnoff now
Oh yeah.
for like hardcores. So I think the fans can help with that reaction, but I think we've got evolved to a point with the amount of time we've been watching this great form of entertainment where we could see through that. And I think the Rock Hollywood Hogan match from WrestleMania 18 is the prime candidate. It's been dubbed as not being an actual very good match if you turn the audio off, but that crowd went ballistic. I think if you had that same scenario here, you might buy into it more and thinking, oh, this is a really, really good match, but I think people can see a little bit through it a little bit better now.
Yeah, I would agree with that for a large part of matches, but the thing about that, if you turn off the volume, the match doesn't really hold up. I feel like audio is a big part of it. Like you wouldn't say that about a movie or a play. Well, if you turn off the volume, they look like doesn't look very convincing at all. Of course not. But I think this is awesome chance aside. Those notwithstanding, I think the crowd being able to get caught up in things a lot is a big deal. I'd say if you point to what there's two Cena matches, where the crowd was very very important, but they didn't take away from the quality of the match. Cena versus RVD One Night Stand, and Cena Punk. What was that? Money in the Bank in Chicago. Those crowds were red hot, but it wasn't about this is awesome chants or like any cliched chants. They were just that rabid and into it. Even add in that what was that? The Clash at the Castle match, Gunther and Sheamus.
And Drew.
Well, Clash at the Castle, I think it was just Gunther and Sheamus because Drew was the main event that night. That crowd was, I mean, the two of them made that crowd insane, but the crowd was also on its own very hyped up to have that event there. Um, I feel like that's as important, if not. Also, if you turn off the volume, take away the commentary, and on TV, the commentary is very important to a match.
Well, I mean,
Well, it should be.
to me it's funny you'd say that because every time I try to counter your argument, I can either make it or counter it. And what I mean by that is, like you would say, well, a perfect match is a result of a great angle. That's not always the case, right? Like Flair Steamboat while they were technical masterpieces, they also had an amazing angle because you had the Family Man versus the Playboy, and they both played them to the hilt, and they were both perfect. It wasn't like they were playing out of character. Flair was the, jet flying, kiss stealing son of a gun, and Ricky Steamboat brought his kid to the ring with him. So it was a classic, Family Man, good versus evil, no doubt. And then on top of it, you had a great classic match. But then I think of like Canadian Stampede, right? Where you've got the Hart family against the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, whatever you want to call them, and Ken Shamrock and Goldust, who are normally cheered everywhere they go, but you put them over in Canada and suddenly they're the biggest heels on the planet, right? Austin. And the crowd, what made that match was the crowd, right? I mean, the crowd was just into it at every minute. Everything the Hart Foundation did, the crowd was on top of, and credit to Austin and his team for playing up the heel angle. Right? They totally just decided they were going to go that way. Then you think of like the Bret Hart Austin match where they do the double turn. What makes that match great is that whole double turn, which is almost impossible to do, right? But in one match, Bret Hart goes bad and Austin goes quote unquote good. So I was trying to put my finger on like what makes a classic, and I don't think you can. I think it's just a weird combination that comes together that works. And that's why that "This is awesome" chant makes me insane, because it's not every match is awesome, guys. Come on. You're trying to create a moment and you can't create it. It creates itself. It's that combination of angle and technical and crowd, and you know what I mean? And sometimes they have some of some and not enough of the other, and it's just that weird combination that somehow ends up like, I thought MJF, and I know the question for you guys when I'm done. I thought MJF and Ospreay was a great match. I don't think it was a classic, because the pedal was always on the floor. They never slowed down. And I think it was missing some other element. Whereas they sold more than they normally do. Like Ospreay was selling the shoulder, all that. My question to you guys is, does the ending of a match, like if an ending of a match has a Fugazi ending, does that ruin a match for you guys? Like, have you watched a match and like, wow, it's a classic, and then they do some stupid ending where somebody cheats or something, and you're like, well, that match used to be great. Now I thought it was just good.
I could see scenarios where the ending could ruin it. I don't necessarily think that was the case last night. I actually felt like it was executed on the level of something you'd expect on WWE. All the elements had to line up perfectly for that ending. The referee going down, the dynamite down the ring, and he did it so subtly that, like, somebody at work was telling me about the match before I got a chance to watch it, and he said brass knucks, and that wasn't the case. It was just so subtle the way it was done, but it was timed perfectly too. I mean, even as they were doing the countdown, I was saying when they said 30 seconds left, I was like, "There's no way they're going to get everything I know that's coming inside of 30 seconds," and they did it. And they had the screen up there to hold accountability. I do
I
have.
thought it was gonna be a draw. I really did.
So did I.
Well, I was going to toot your horn, devil's advocate, because you actually said last week when this match was announced, you could see MJF winning it just so for Ospreay to get it back at All In. You did say that.
I did.
So when I was out last night, and as I was driving home, it popped up on my phone that MJF had beat Ospreay for the title, and the first thing I thought is, son of a bitch, he was right.
Well, they haven't announced the match yet, so I'm not right yet. But
Oh, come on.
I think they're
But
gonna.
it's created the opening.
They got to run it back. I mean, come on, MJF cheated, so.
Yeah, where I thought the match was lacking, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it was a long match to watch. I don't recall and I'm probably saying the name wrong, but the Salt of the Earth armbar, whatever he calls that. I don't recall him doing that in the match.
He didn't do it.
He didn't.
Meanwhile, the shoulder was popped out. That was part of the storyline. Why wouldn't you go for that? And that's minor, but I thought there was that emotion of not being sure if Ospreay was going to kick out or never happened. You had MJF get hit with the hidden blade, and he kicked out. But we never felt like Ospreay was in peril until he was knocked out. After the Diamond ring. It was supposed to be a straight up one-on-one match. They must have spent like at least 5-6 minutes out in the crowd.
Well, they said the referee was giving him a lot of leeway.
That's how they were covering
Yeah.
themselves. I thought
They did talk about that a lot.
Yeah, they did. And I thought that was weak sauce. It was like, this is simple. No count out. Because they didn't
Well,
really
then it becomes a no DQ match, and then MJF can use the
No.
regular.
You could do no count out
That's true.
and still have a DQ, but
they rarely do that anymore.
Right. But on that note, they went into the crowd and all right, there were drinks thrown, whatever. But there was a table spot. That would have been a disqualification. So but I don't think saying no count out, no DQ would have worked for this either. I think the match, the way it went down, was a very great match. I would say right now, that's the early favorite for the match of the year right now. But was there parts of it that I thought, the other thing, there was about 7 minutes left, and all of a sudden they went through this sequence where Ospreay hits MJF. He looks like he's about to fall, bounces off the rope, hits him back, and they did it for like 3 or 4 minutes. And I'm like, guys, you've been going almost an hour. Can you at least sell it a little bit? Get knocked out. How many times were guys down for the 10 count? Nothing. So was it great?
There was no double count, was there? I'm just thinking about that. There was no situation with the double count.
Right. Anytime the referee should have been over counting them out, he wasn't doing it. He just kept checking on him. And I'm like, all right. And I'm not trying to knock it. It was a great match. I feel like there's been other matches in AEW that I'd rate higher. I'd say Cody Dustin at Double or Nothing was a better match. I'd say that crazy Moxley Omega match at Full Gear was probably a better match. I think top 5 AEW, I'll give you that. Greatest match of all time or top AEW match of all time? I don't know if I'd go that far.
Let me ask you both a question. And I'm thinking of something Devil's Advocate said earlier in the year. Do you think that this was the best Will Ospreay match even of the year in AEW? Because there was another match you mentioned. I feel like
the Swerve match better.
Yeah. And I feel like there was another match earlier in the year, even before that, where you said, well, if you're going to watch one match, and he's been in pretty much every match of AEW's where you say, well, if you're going to watch one of their matches, watch this match from this pay-per-view. Again, if you're going to watch one thing from the show, from Dynamite in the month of July, well, okay, probably that match. But yeah, I don't know if it's, and not to take away from it, I just don't think it's even his best
what
match.
What Ospreay match are you talking about, hey, Reverend?
Was it Danielson this year? Or was Danielson last year?
Danielson was
this year.
I don't know.
It was Danielson this year, I think. I feel like that's the first time you ever texted me and said, well, if you haven't seen the show yet, you can just watch that match and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think I remember doing that.
I've said that so many times.
And you said that, yeah. It's all right. So
I'll look it up, but I thought that was at Dynasty.
Maybe.
April.
Maybe. I thought it was really good. It was a really great match. A really great TV match. I was shocked by it. It was for AEW, it was a pay-per-view quality match on television. It wasn't one of their best pay-per-view matches. There was some stuff. You talked about some of those technicalities going on. I think if we're talking about what goes into a great match, I think the ability to not repeat yourself too quickly, and I don't mean callbacks to something earlier in a match, but not repeat similar spots along the way, has to count for something. And the one thing that stuck out to me was there was maybe 2 or 3 occasions that Ospreay went to the top rope and MJF tripped him. And it was the exact same way, each time. It was the exact same way. And he just tripped him. And I thought, well, why would he do that again? Why would he do that again? Why would he do that and not succeed? And it wasn't like he was just trying to do it and it just kept, like, he'd try to do it out of desperation and MJF would just keep coming up with a new way to thwart it. It was just, they did the same spot over and over. And I felt like, oh, maybe they didn't know what to do there, or they didn't have something else planned, but they felt they had to do something. it was nonstop a lot of that match, and that's hard to do for an hour. And I think I applaud their effort for being able to do that. But I wonder if sometimes being able to fit those pauses in would have helped. But maybe that's me being conditioned in my WWE watching too, about how they do their storytelling. But I think that's maybe that's an older school wrestling thing too.
The nonstop action was a little much, but they did take breaks.
They did.
Along with the commercial breaks.
Yes.
Convenient.
Picture-in-picture breaks.
Right. Yeah. And then at one point, the picture-in-picture went to 2 minutes, and they did their customary, now we're going to go to full screen commercial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised they got such a great relationship with WBD, or Warner Brothers Discovery. Why they didn't get a commercial-free first hour and then stack the second hour with all the commercial breaks you would have had.
That would have been an amazing thing to watch ad-free. I think that would have upped the quality, and they would have had to do a few things differently.
Yeah, well, maybe they needed to build in those breaks.
I will say this, though, and you guys mentioned it. The timing for that finish, I mean, I did a double take looking at the Tron there. I was like, no, that couldn't have just happened.
I'll tell you what. Let me
59 minutes 58 seconds.
Let me pay a little homage to MJF too. There was two spots I want to mention. One of them is when MJF was standing outside the ring with his arms up, and Ospreay came flying and hit him in the back of the head. I mean, amazing spot, and he took it like a champ. The other one was...
They shouldn't have showed the replay on that, though. Because it looked great the first time. On the replay, you saw at the very last second where he looked up at the Tron to see, okay,
well, I was gonna
he's
say,
almost there.
That's why I was going to pay tribute to him, because he did that twice during the match. The second time when Ospreay went to hit him, you can tell he was looking at the Tron, and they even mentioned it during commentary. That, he's and that's smart, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're supposed to use all of your surroundings and everything that you know about wrestling and what you can do in the ring. And if you can do that, more power to you. Like, I don't have a problem with that at all.
There's a couple of instances where I feel like everybody involved in that match did something similar by relying on something you wouldn't normally rely on. Where even the referee, there was that spot where he had where MJF had him in the hold and he was grabbing onto the ropes for leverage, and the ref couldn't see it. And the second or third time he did it, he looked at the crowd. He's like, is he doing it? And they started yelling, yeah, he's on there. And that's when he went and stopped it. And I thought, well, that's something you don't see. That's a little interact. Like, they're not pretending the surroundings aren't important. And that was kind of cool. I love that spot, though, where he looked up at the Tron.
Yeah. And the other part too, when he was doing that holding the ropes, and the referee told him let go, and he went, "No, I think he said something like I'm not done yet," or something like that, or like said, "Give me another minute," or something like that. And the referee was like, "Get out of here!" And he kicked his hand away.
Yeah, and he was like, "I'm not doing anything wrong."
Yeah. I mean, he's our scumbag. There's no doubt.
He is. I think I forgot what he could actually do in the ring. Like, I think, if anything, this was a great reminder of how versatile he is in the ring, because he was pulling out some stuff that I was like, oh, shit. This guy can fly if he has to. I didn't realize. I forgot. So effort, I mean, great match. I don't know if I think it holds up as a great TV match. But at the end of the year, I don't think it cracks the top 5, at least.
Oh, I think it does. I don't think it's one of the greatest of all time.
No, they're top 5 for this year. You think?
Oh, definitely.
I feel like there's at least 2 other Ospreys that cut in line ahead of it.
Right. Well, at the end of the year, you'll tell us.
Yes. And that's true. By the end of the year, we'll know for sure.
We still have 5 months to go.
That's right.
I'm actually hoping they utilize the screen in the matches more. This was in wrestling. There was a UFC fight, and I think it was John Jones, and his opponent had weight. I think, or it might have been Brandon Vera. Anyway, believe the guy was getting waist locked from behind, and he looked up at the screen. And as he's looking up at the screen, he starts elbowing the guy in the back of the head, but he's using the screen to figure out where to throw the elbows.
I like
Good
that.
for him.
Yeah.
Very smart. All right. Well, I was curious because people throw that classic and all-time tag on a lot of different things, and to me, I think time is the only true judge. Right. In the end, when we look back in this match 3 years from now, we're gonna be like, yeah, or MJF did something, I don't know, or we're gonna be like, remember that match? That you look back fondly. And again, I think rewatchability is also a big one.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Would
true.
you rewatch the match again, or would you be like, I saw it once, it was great, but I don't really want to watch it again.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we did talk about that too.
Mhm.
Okay, I'd watch it again. That's an hour-long match. That's hard to do. Say I'd watch an hour-long match again.
How many watch-alongs have we done and watched the 92 Rumble? Too many.
No, it was
times.
95. It
Or
was
95.
the 95
Right?
one.
Well, that's because it's so terrible.
That's because it was only 32 minutes or whatever it is. I think the other thing with this match, specifically from last night's Dynamite, and a lot of the matches we've talked about in the recent history, there is so many good to great matches now happening. And a lot of it is, these guys don't necessarily know how to tone it down. They got to get all their shit in, so they got to get every move in and not sell and blah blah blah. It is what it is, but I feel like there's so many matches that people consider to be on that great level that they start blending together so that none really stick out, you know? And I think that's the difference between some of the matches we mentioned now, like that 92 Royal Rumble. I used to go back every year and try to watch every Rumble match, starting about a month prior. And that 92 one definitely sticks out. Not that the other ones weren't fun, but they weren't on the level of the 92 one, so that one stuck out more. Where like if the 92 one was mixed in with some of the ones in the late 2000s, like the 2007 one with the ending between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, do you know what I mean? They were happening consecutively, would we look at it with the same fondness and respect? I don't know.
Well, I mean, again, 92 had the great angle, right? You had the Flair, the outsider coming in. Then look at that roster. You had probably 20 guys you could have made a case to win the Rumble. And then you had the whole Hogan Sid Justice thing going on, and then you know what I mean. Like there was so many pieces to that Rumble. To me, it's funny. Every list they ever see, they always go, "Yeah, all right, let's throw the 92 Rumble out," because everybody thinks that everybody knows that's the greatest one of all time. And let's talk about the second greatest one of all time.
Right, but they did a similar storyline in 2016 where Roman Reigns' title was on the line in that Royal Rumble match. That was the debut of AJ Styles. That was, I believe, there was a bounty. I'm trying to remember, but I think there was a storyline about getting money if you were the one that eliminated Roman Reigns or something like that. There was a good storyline there. I'm not going back to watch that Rumble.
No, but I'm talking. They had how many Hall of Famers in '92 Royal Rumble? Probably the whole roster. Probably everybody that was in that match is a Hall of Famer.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well,
the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs was in.
Well, they're gonna get in at some point, I think. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at this 2016 one, and there's a lot of future Hall of Famers in there, but there's enough that will never be. But anyway, I don't want to spend like 30 seconds going through this list of names. So you made your point. Now, as far as who else is making a point, is Mommy making a point? Because Mommy's back.
Mommy's back. Thank God. God, I hate Liv Morgan.
Oh,
You and me
have
both.
to see a lot more Liv Morgan leading up to this match. And you're
I got
probably going
news
to see
for
a
you.
lot more Liv Morgan after this match.
I think I know what he's about to say.
Yeah, I don't think Mommy's winning the title back at SummerSlam.
I don't either.
I think we're going to see the breakup of the Judgment Day at SummerSlam.
Oh, I wasn't going to go that far.
I didn't think about that.
Well, Dom is my prediction. Dom is going to turn and go with Liv.
Okay.
And Damian Priest is going to lose to Gunther.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of the end of the Judgment Day at that point.
I think.
Do you think he might lose because of Finn Balor?
Maybe. I
it's
don't know if they're going to do a
possible.
double. I don't know if they're going to do a double interference turn, like have them both change on the same night. But I think the ball will start rolling at that point, and I think Liv is the easy choice because everybody wants that belt back on Rhea, and I don't think it's time yet. Even though I hate Liv Morgan, and I think she's done nothing for this title, I don't think it's. I think it's angle wise, it's more sense for her not to have the title yet.
Do you think we potentially see like an Ivory China ending? Or you think Mommy's going to wipe the floor with her and then, freak injury or something? And that would be interesting. Haven't seen that in about 20 years.
That's true.
Paint the picture for me.
What do you mean?
Give me the scenario. Tell me what's going to happen.
Okay.
Well, I made a prediction. Make a prediction. Tell me what you think.
No. It's not a prediction. It's just something that's been done before. I wouldn't mind. I think it would be interesting if they did it again. Like maybe. I don't know. Rhea Ripley hits the Riptide, but her shoulder injury, creeps its ugly head. She can't get down to make the cover. She's holding the shoulder, and then Liv Morgan manages to get up as quickly, not quickly, but after like 30 seconds or something, as Rhea Ripley's really finally getting back up after selling the injury, and Liv Morgan gets an inside cradle.
I like that scenario. I think what they should do is she should hurt her shoulder, come over, like Dom comes out to give her a hug. She reaches over the ropes to hug him, and he grabs her arm and he pulls it down over the ropes. And just then Liv hits her whatever her stupid move is and pins
Oblivion.
Rhea Ripley. Oh, thank you. And pins Rhea Ripley. Because I think if you're going to follow the angle through, Liv's got to get a clean pin, like, a pin. She can't like win on DQ or anything like that. And then that's Dom turns on her and leaves it Liv. And then, like the Reverend said, I don't think they do the double turn that night. I think Damian loses, and in his frustration, that starts. And then Finn's like, you were champion, we're still champions. And eventually they have a falling out, and I think Rhea and Priest stay together because they seem the only two that seem to be cool.
Right.
When she was coming back, who did she call? She called Priest. She didn't call anybody else. And then it's them two, and then Liv joins the Judgment. The whatever's left of the Judgment Day.
Do we think it's possible that Dom does cause Rhea to lose, but just through sheer idiocy and not malicious intent?
Well, if you want to draw the angle out, you could do that, right? You could have him accidentally, go to interfere and have her lose. If you want to drag this out a little longer, if you want to just do it right away, you have him just, turn on her at the pay-per-view. But either way, I don't think Rhea comes out of the pay-per-view with the belt. As much as I would like to see a 2-minute squash, it's not going to happen.
I am thinking of how is it possible that people will be able to boo Dominic Mysterio even more?
I don't know if it's possible. How has he managed to become the greatest heel in WWE right now?
I mean,
how has he managed to do that?
That's an example there of just leaning into something. Like he really just leaned into it, and of course he's gotten better as a wrestler. But man, I'm surprised he can ever get a promo out still.
Well, he can. He has to yell over the crowd. So, I was thinking too, watching Raw this week. When's the last time you saw Braun Strowman get pinned?
Like that, clean,
right? Like when I saw this match, I figured they'll throw some kind of disqualification or interference or something. And when he pinned Braun, I was like, they're trying to make him look like he could beat Gunther. I still think Gunther's going to beat him, but
You know who it was? I think it was Gunther who did it. The last person to pin Braun Strowman clean.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, I think he challenged for the title, and Gunther pinned him clean.
Okay.
Yeah, and if those are the only two people who have done it in the last year, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like him, Braun. I think he should be an attraction, not a a wrestler, but a regular wrestler. But he doesn't get pinned very often. So when I saw it when he delivered that choke slam, I was like, they let him get pinned. Okay, interesting. All right. So we all know during the last pay-per-view, John Cena pretty much told us about his retirement, and that next year up to WrestleMania would be his swan song. And I think he'll stick to that. I don't think he's the kind of guy that will come back to wrestle. He might come back as like a special host but I think his wrestling days are over. I mean, he's acting enough now. He doesn't need to wrestle anymore. And, for whatever reason The Rock keeps coming back. I don't think Cena has that feeling in him. I think, and I could be totally wrong because we know how wrestlers are. Terry Funk retired every year until he died. I don't think he's retired yet. And he died, But the question's coming up. Should he break Flair's record? And Flick Flair weighed in, of course. And what did he say? He said, of course, he'd like his daughter to do it. Forgetting the fact that his daughter's title reigns have been about a week. She's had 6 to 15 reigns, but, they've all been about 5 days each. But he reiterated that he would be happy to have Cena break that record.
I think he also threw Orton out there as a name.
Well, I mean, the last thing I saw was he was talking specifically about Cena. So my question to you guys, 2 questions. Should Cena break the record? Is that record something that should never be broken? Is that one of those things where you leave it where Flair is the greatest of all? We all say Flair is the greatest of all time. Do we have that record get broken? Or do we leave that one like, no, nobody ever gets to be champion that many times? We're going to keep, we're going to leave that where it's at. We had the Undertaker streak get broken, so there's no such thing as, there's nothing sacred in wrestling, right? We break streaks all the time. People lose. So, Encyclopedia, what do you think? Do you think Cena should, first of all, what type of run do you think Cena should have? And number 2, do you think he should get a one more title reign? And then number 3, do you think that shouldn't be broken and Flair at 16 should stay there and no one should ever beat that?
As far as his run, I think I'd like to see him in a combination of classic opponents as well as putting at least some shine on some newer people. I feel like Jericho does that in AEW a bit. I mean, unfortunately, that shine doesn't last very long after Jericho's done with them. But yeah, I mean, like a combination. Like, would I like to see Cena Punk again? Yes. Would I like to see Cena versus Braun Breaker? That would be interesting. So I'd like to see a mix there. I don't think I need to see Cena versus Orton again, but I'm okay with it. Number 2, should Cena break Flair's record? If you asked me this question when Cena got his number 16, and I think it was by beating AJ Styles for the belt, back then I would have said no, absolutely not. But Cena's goodwill, Cena's work for Make-A-Wish, and the fact that it's been several years since he actually was champion, I feel differently about it now. I don't think it ever takes away from Flair being the individual a lot of people feel is the greatest wrestler of all time. I don't, because Cena was known for having good to some great matches in his run, but he was also playing to his character. So, for a lot of times the joke is he only had the 3 moves of doom. So I don't think Cena necessarily breaking, or even an Orton breaking Flair's record would be looked at as, oh, there's no respect for Flair anymore. I don't think that's the case. I hate to say it, but even if Charlotte broke the record, I don't think that's necessarily downplays what Rick does. I don't want to see it either. And then you had the last question was. Can you remind me? I'm fading, boys. I'm sorry.
The first question was, which you answered, should Cena break the record? You said yes.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kind of answered the other question was, you think Flair's record should be beaten?
I'm okay. I'm okay with that. Now, depending on who it is, I'm okay with it now. 7 years ago, I didn't necessarily agree that it should be Cena, or I would be okay with it being Cena. But yeah, I know I answered two. There was a third one there though.
That was the third one. The third one was, should Cena break Flair's record? Oh, and you said who opponent you would like to see him fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, should Flair's record not be broken at all? And you said you thought it'd be okay. So you answered all the questions.
Okay. All right. Good night.
So Reverend, do I need to repeat the questions again?
No, I recall them.
I'll keep them to 2 next time.
There are some guys I'd like to see him, some new folks I'd like to see him get in that ring with. I could see him getting in there with Carmelo Hayes. I'd love to see it if Carmelo Hayes got a win on him. He needs a win against somebody big. I could see him and AJ Styles renewing their rivalry. I could see that on the way out. Definitely Punk. I don't think there's any escaping that. I think him and Punk are going to have a match. Yeah, does he need to win the title? No. John Cena winning or not winning and breaking that record for world title reigns will have no major impact on his legacy in WWE. But it's cool if they want to give it, have him do that. I mean, whatever. I just don't think he needs it. I don't think he thinks he needs it. I don't think Triple H thinks he needs it. I could see if someone else was still in charge it happening, but that ain't happening now. So I don't think it will happen. I think eventually his record could get broken, but I was trying to think of the people who are close to breaking it right now. After Cena, who's tied, it's what, Randy Orton with 14, Charlotte Flair.
I don't even know who after that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody after that is in the single digits.
Like that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, eventually it's going to happen. One day it'll happen.
Do you wait till after Flair's dead?
That's the question. I mean, you could treat it like Cal Ripken's streak. And maybe that's the one that just nobody can quite get over. And just the way things are now, it's not going to happen. And I think that's fine. That's a Ric Flair legacy. I think I am happy with it only being associated with him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think Cena will do it, and I don't think it ever needs to happen.
Yeah, I don't want him to win the title. If you would have told me maybe 2 years ago, I might have been like, yeah, give it to him. But to me now, it's almost like a consolation prize. He's not a regular. Again, it goes back to he's not a regular competitor. He's already taken a roster spot away from somebody else. So the least he could do is do the job on the way out. We talked about this with Stephanie Fakor last week in a different vein, but still, I like to see him wrestle people he hasn't wrestled before, and I like to see him do the job on the way out. Give that, like Anthony said, give that rub to a couple people who need it. If you're going to go retro, I guess I'd like to see him fight Orton one more time, maybe. I wouldn't even care if he and The Rock decided they just wanted to have another match, just because there's always been a rivalry there. I don't see, with all the bloodline stuff, I don't see that happening, but it wouldn't bother me. But as far as other old competitors, I don't really need to see. If he never doesn't wrestle anybody like Orton or CM Punk again, I'm okay with that. Let him, because let's face it, he's not the man he was. Who is? He's not going to be able to go 30 minutes. So put him in a short program, and I don't need to see him start like rivalries up with new people. I just want him to be like cherry pick. I really want to fight this guy, and I really want to fight this guy, and I'm going to join the Rumble. Have him do a decent spot in the Rumble, but have him get eliminated. Maybe he even be in the final four, so you give the fans a little thrill that they think he might make it. But have him eliminated. And you know how I feel about Cena. I respect the man immensely. I hate his character. So I boo him every time I see him, and anytime I hear his stupid music, I'm the guy yelling, "John Cena sucks." So I don't want to see him anywhere near a belt. I think this should be his victory lap. So let him get in the ring with people he's always wanted to fight. Let him do the job. Let him have a decent showing in the Rumble. Give him a WrestleMania match with, if he wants to go out like against Orton or Styles or whoever, and then send him off on his way. And let's get that roster back with some of the younger people in there again.
I will throw one other name out that I can't believe I forgot. I could see it easily happening, even if it's just a TV match. Kevin Owens. Because it's easy for Kevin Owens to end up in a match with anybody. He has the perfect character for it. So yeah, I'd love to see that on a SmackDown.
By the way, he said that his mom kicked out. She made
Yes. Shout out to Kevin Owens' mom, because yes, that's very good news.
I wonder if Cena's going to make TV appearances and wrestle, or is he just going to wrestle on the big shows?
Well, they said 30 to 40 appearances, so
that's going to be some Raws or SmackDowns then.
Yeah,
it would have to be, yeah. And I think he'd want it to be.
Well, appearances means he'd come out and talk, right? Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to wrestle.
That's true.
I really could be like 5 matches and 25 appearances on various shows.
Yeah, I'd be okay with him maybe having a few matches on TV, but otherwise I would. This is supposed to be a moneymaker for them as well. I mean, come on, let's be honest. That's the whole idea here.
What about going to NXT?
I think he'd want to do it. He'd want to do something with NXT.
I'm trying to think of the current roster of who I'd be interested in seeing him face there, and outside of Trick Williams, I can't really come up with anyone.
Not what's that Oba guy?
Oma Femi? No, fuck no.
I don't want to see him get murdered. Oh my god! I don't think Cena now could handle that beating.
John Cena squash.
I could see him and Ethan Page getting into something. I could see that pretty easily.
Sorry, I'm staying awake. Okay, I'll stop.
You're staying awake with a fan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, does anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Because we could wrap it up if you guys are.
I did just want to bring up one thing that happened on Dynamite, because it was easy to get lost in when talking about that match, that basically main event opening match. Mariah May coming out as Toni Storm, the understudy who has now usurped the lead role. I enjoyed that so much. And I mean, she did the full entrance and even did the thing at the end where she's just laying on the mat and just that's maybe the best angle in the main brands for women's wrestling right now. I would think, and it's probably the match I'm most excited about seeing actually happen. But yeah, I just wanted to. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that in particular, but I just thought it was amazing.
What about Darby coming down like Sting?
It's Darby. Oh, shit.
I like that he came down and Mark Briscoe had to get him out of his harness.
Mark Briscoe getting another MVP vote.
Sting used to get out of his own harness.
Yeah.
I would have loved him to go, get out of my way, Darby Allin.
I actually saw some people being critical of that stunt because it was a week after the Owen ended.
Yeah, I don't see any relationship to that.
Like if he was in the Owen Hart tournament final and that's how he came to the ring,
Or
then
if they were
yes, that's a problem.
Or if they were in the arena that Owen died in.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem.
That would be a problem for me. I didn't even make that connection.
I thought that's interesting, but whatever.
It's the
You know
internet.
what?
Somebody wants to get mad.
Look, I'm gonna be honest.
People want to be mad, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say if that's what you're picking at, let's go with the fact that honestly, both finals matches did not, in my way, or in my mind, really give true tribute to Owen Hart in any way, shape, or form. Like Dana Bryan bleeding, for example. And Rob, I did watch after you said what you shared. I didn't think Martha. It was awkward at the end of it, but she seemed to be up until that point to be okay with it. I just didn't think either one of those finals really did any tribute in any way, shape, or form. No one, especially with Mariah May and the Tony Storm segment at the end. Especially using the belt to really,
Yeah. Also, in terms of awkwardness, it could just be that she didn't want to get covered in blood, which that's fair.
Well, that was, I think, the point. I mean,
hey, congratulations.
Wouldn't want to touch Bryan Danielson either, covered in blood. You know what I mean? So I don't blame her. It's just it was funny because she could tell she was like wanted to congratulate him, and he was like, you know how cousin Eddie tries to hug the wife in Vacation, and she spends all the whole movie trying to get away from him. It was kind of like she was trying to find an angle she could get at without actually getting anything on her. So I don't know. I thought it was funny. It just you could tell it was a little awkward, but
Guys, thoughts on the Eric Rowan promo from Monday Night Raw? I don't know if either of you saw it. That was the latest of the Wyatt Six tapes.
I saw it.
I don't know if they can do another interview after that one for any of those characters, because aside from Bo Dallas and Eric Rowan, none of them will probably have that level of.
They need to start wrestling. I'm a little done with the tapes and and again, I'll go back to my original statement where we were talking Bo Dallas, Nikki Cross. None of these people were great shakes. So when you're talking the original Wyatt family, you're talking about Brody and Braun and Bray Wyatt, and now we've got Bo Dallas, Nikki Cross, and what's the guy that used to do the stare? That I can't think of his name anymore because he hasn't been on TV in so long. Dexter Loomis. Not really a great collection of wrestlers. So to me, they got to get in the ring and start doing stuff. Because a lot of the criticism I read this week was when they called out Bo Dallas, he came out. People were like, "Oh, look, it's Bo Dallas." Like it's not Uncle Howdy, it's Bo Dallas. You know what I mean? So I think they need to start establishing themselves in the ring as something to be afraid of. Otherwise, it's going to be like a bunch of jobbers that are trying to make something off Bray Wyatt's name. So I think they got to be careful with that. On the other hand, I really do like the music they play. That ding, ding. I love that. I want them to play that all the time.
Is that really music or a sound effect?
I don't know what it is. I just like it because it's creepy. It's the appropriate amount of creepy without being what they used to be. The Wyatt family. But
it's like suddenly the show has a score, like a horror movie score.
Like that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't know. I'm still waiting to see. They're bringing out these tapes and they're doing these interviews. It's fine, but at some point you got to get in the ring.
I don't even think we're going to see that till after SummerSlam. Probably not till around Bad Blood time.
I don't know. Well, I guess
actual legit in ring stuff.
I guess we'll see. All right,
That's
we
all I
wrapping
got.
up? Is that it?
That's all I
All
got.
right, Encyclopedia, wrap us up.
No, I want to hear you try.
Yeah, no, you don't. We're on
Sports Frenzy
Twitter.
Pod, Sports Frenzy Pod on Twitter, which never gets posted anyway. Sports Frenzy Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Also check out our brother show OTBS. And actually, I'm just going to give a cheap plug out for another wrestling podcast. They did reach out to me, so our friends Steve Credo and Angry Cooter have been back for a few weeks. Check them out as well. We thank you guys for listening. Have a great weekend, and we will see you guys next week.